Hello and welcome everybody to your weekly astrological and tarot energy reading for the collective. I apologize for the delay in getting this video out to you. I did actually start recording it last night, and the energy was so heavily Piscean because the moon was in Pisces and the Neptune Mars Piscean energy was being heavily triggered and still is being heavily triggered by it squaring to the sun. They're squaring to the sun. And I think the moon energy just kind of put it a little bit over the top for me, and I felt unable to ground myself, and that's the problem with too much water. You can tread water, but it's hard to make progress. So I let it go. Mostly because the subconscious mind is ruled by the moon and water. And so sometimes we just have to surrender to the element that is so predominant in order to find some version of a soul discovery. And our cards this week are definitely going to reveal that for us. The squares that I just talked about are extremely triggering at present because there is such a profound sense of frustration within all of us on the personal and the worldly level. We are no longer capable of telling fact from fiction. We do not know any measure of truth outside of ourselves, and so we have to prioritize focusing on developing and reinforcing our personal truth. Right now, our media is so full of falsehoods and lies. The narrative is purely propagandist on every level. It is purely political. There is no direct source for fact-seeking people. We must take it upon ourselves to tap into our intuitive power, cultivate our intuition and our instincts, because we are in a war right now for the survival of truth, which is in turn the survival of humanity as we have known it to be in a progressive sense. The technocratic revolution or coup d'etat that is taking place at present is real and dangerous, and the only thing that can combat the horrific psychopathic agenda of these technocrat oligarchs that rule all of our lives already, whether that be Jeff Bezos with his revolting Amazon that I am as guilty as everybody else for using, particularly throughout this pandemic nightmare of falsehoods, and Elon Musk, who through his revolting SpaceX program is colonizing space and ruining our atmosphere and polluting Earth's immediate surrounding areas with his thousands of potentially dangerous satellites. And I'm not sure if you all know this, but literally he has the permission to send thousands of satellites into orbit around the Earth that will block our view of the skies. We will no longer be able to see stars, planets, the moon in the same capacity that we are used to, because we won't be able to tell the difference between that and the pollution of satellites. And those satellites are being used to plug us all into some very potentially nefarious and controversial telecommunications advancements. So all those things are the reason why our world is in complete disarray. In the United States, and as a trickle-down effect in most other Western countries, racism is used as a divisive public catalyst for chaos, which then in turn allows our governments or our law enforcement services and secret polices and intelligence organizations to keep us even further divided and eventually criminalize our attempts to maintain our freedoms and sovereignty. And mark my words, very unpleasant things are on the horizon. And by the end of this year, I don't even know if we will be able to communicate this way any longer. Either because of censorship or because there will be so many other priorities to focus on that will be more about survival. So I hate to be this doomsday prophecy deliverer this week, but I'm seeing the complacency in people. I'm seeing the confusion in people in terms of the way that they are politicizing activism. And there's a reason why we've never made any progress with a lot of our sociological chaos. And systematically, the powers that be quash and eventually suppress voices of dissent, because it's almost a requirement in order to be a part of the system in which we live, to submit to cognitive dissonance of some sort. We have to separate ourselves from the injustice in our conscious minds, because otherwise, well, we simply wouldn't be able to participate in any of the things that are the fabric of our society. So what can we do as spiritual beings on this journey of awakening and eventual transcendence? We can continue with the work we've already been doing. We can explore our spirituality. We can explore the powers that we have within ourselves. We can develop our intuitive powers. We can develop our psychic abilities. We can develop our capacity for love. And we can stand tall and true to fairness and justice in our society based upon humanitarian needs and values. Christ consciousness, Krishna consciousness, Buddha consciousness, Allah consciousness, Moses consciousness, whoever you follow, whoever inspires you through organized religion, spirituality, paganism, whatever it is that you find truth in, because it doesn't matter, because they're all the same. And the legends and stories of mythology and religion are all basically the same figures, just with different names and different representations, whether that be the planets or, well, actually, they're all represented by the planets, because at the foundation of all mysticism, astrology, prevails first and foremost, because we are part of the cosmos, and the cosmos is infinite and all encompassing. So, I take in the cosmos right now to deliver the remainder of this week's messages, now that I have gotten on and off my soapbox. Thank you for listening thus far. Let us start with our Wisdom of the Oracle card for this week. Breathe. Well, that speaks for itself, doesn't it? And I think we can all agree that in our lives, in some shape or form, we're struggling to breathe, for whatever the reason may be in our personal circumstances. I've certainly been short of breath in my conversations whenever I become emotional. I've spoken to other people that have had their own reasons, but perhaps at the core, it's all linked to some kind of throat and heart chakra imbalance, because when we're out of alignment as a result of propagandist untruths prevailing in our surroundings, when injustice makes us feel powerless, this part of us here gets blocked, and we have to exercise ourselves in order to open up those energy points. I think so many of us are in this constant semi-fight or flight mode at the moment, where we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, or that for there to be some kind of a development that is going to harness us into some negative, destructive journey. But this fear cycle has to end in order for us to grow and move forward. So we're in a very quiet period before the solar eclipse on the solstice on the 21st of June. And to put that into context astrologically, seeing as we did skip over the astrology a little bit in the beginning because of my soapbox rant, here are some things to take into consideration. We have that solar eclipse following the penumbral lunar eclipse that we had just over a week ago. And the solar eclipse marks a new energy cycle for all of us, and it will be very impactful, and it will precede by a week the movement of Mars into Aries from Pisces, where it has been submerged and almost like a metamorphosis of some sort, a period of chrysalis incubation, and this solar eclipse and this Aries energy. I don't know what the adjective is for Aries, but I'm sure it's not Aryan, because that would be rather controversial. It's pivotal in any case. And of course, from an American perspective, after that we have another eclipse on the 5th of July, around the time of America's birthday, July 4th. And the astrology for the United States does not look particularly good for the year ahead. And I won't go into any more details of that, but I think that my initial rant in this video gave context to why and how. And however these conflicting ideologies meet, it will be in some form of Mars warrior energy. So it's either civil war or international war, and both have the same end goal: upheaval. So let's stick to breathing for now, right? I have to remember to look in the right direction for the camera, so if you see me talking in that direction a little bit too often this time, just know that it's because I have my recording device turned the wrong way around. Anyway, or maybe it's the right way around. Who knows? Next card, I do actually have a new deck, the Sacred Destiny Oracle by Denise Lynn, and this is a deck to discover the landscape of your soul. And our first draw for our weekly reading with this card is Purity. And the message of Purity is, no, not purification, purity. Where the heck is that? Here it is. Purity, first snow. Before the first snow, the earth is dark and cold. Fallen trees from autumn storms lay haphazardly atop the decaying leaves that cover the forest floor. However, when the first snow arrives, the darkness and decomposing soil are replaced by a purity that is light and bright. In the sunshine, the individual snowflakes atop the snowdrifts sparkle with crystalline light. Harsh sounds are muffled. Sharp corners and rugged edges are muted. Everything feels fresh and new. Debris seemingly disappears beneath the pristine white landscapes. Softly falling snow illuminates the environment in a diffusion of swirling forms. At night, in the light of the full moon, the first snow is glowing and serenely silent, turning everything into an enchanted fairy tale realm. In some mystical traditions, descending snow symbolizes the transmission of knowledge from a higher plane, the heavens, to the lower planes, the earth, thus bringing purity to the earth. The sacred landscape wants you to know that no matter what has happened in the past, everything can be fresh and new again. The purity of your soul is shining through everything that you encounter. You are entering into a period of grace. Simply open your heart and know that the best is yet to come. The past does not need to equal the future. Your future can be and will be shimmering, sparkling, and bright. Old limiting patterns are dropping away. Recurring challenges are releasing. This is a time for redemption, forgiveness, and holy healing. And finally, I did also pull a spirit animal oracle card for the week, and this is the same card that we got last night when I pulled last night, so it's always nice for there to be some consistency there. We got bat spirit. A rebirth is assured. So aside from breathing, both of the other cards have a very distinct message in terms of rebirth. The oracle message of bat spirit is: after something has run its course and died or been released, finished, surrendered, completed, or ended, there is a promise of a new beginning. Rebirth is assured just as night gives way to dawn and the bat emerges from the darkness of a womb-like cave. Bat spirit has come to remind you this rebirth is a miraculous one, for the very best elements of what you had to give up in the death of the old are still present in this new, amazing life forming now. This is the miracle and magic of rebirth in every aspect of your life, including the rebirth of faith in your ability to establish new and healthy relationships. Bat Spirit reminds you that at present you are in unknown territory and may feel as if you are lost. However, you are called to trust that your intuition will be a reliable guide as you give birth to something new and unfamiliar. Bat Spirit has listened in the darkness of night and has heard all your hopes and dreams, your fears and worries, and assures you that this new version of your dream, this move from darkness into light, from lost to found and death to rebirth, comes to fruition with love at its core. Bat Spirit asks you to trust that what seems to have died is actually shape-shifting into something even more meaningful and wondrous than before. If you feel you're in the dark, know that come morning, all will be revealed and things will be in a new form that's right for you. And our protection message from Bat Spirit is, what are you refusing to let die? Bat Spirit is gently nudging you to let go of your need to cling to the familiar story that has always run its course. A new story is poised to be born. Some dreams were only meant to last for a moment in time. Sometimes they were only there to slow you down as you recalibrated in preparation for the new life that will give you what you really want. Perhaps you need to grieve as you say goodbye to something. At least you're saying goodbye to its familiar form. Perhaps you must let go of a part of you that must die so you can be reborn. This temporary time in the dark doesn't have to be a scary or sad one, though. Bat Spirit gives you her powers of perception and awareness as you learn to listen deeply and navigate these unknown caves of temporary emptiness. You will emerge with a new perspective, and Bat Spirit will witness your giving birth to the life that matches the intentions and desires of your heart and soul. And so much of this chrysalis energy is about giving us the opportunity to understand what exactly it is that we are transforming. I mean, we've had months and months and months of sitting around contemplating the chaos in our outer world, but at the same time coming into a deep understanding and knowingness regarding what needs to change within ourselves in order for us to move forward regardless of the outside circumstances as the best version of ourselves, as the untapped version of ourselves, as the potential that we know that we have fully incarnated. Let's get into our tarot reading for the week. We start with our underlying energy, the sun. Well, what could be more fitting in the lead up to a solar eclipse and the solstice than the sun, because it is not only the leonine card, but it is, of course, I can't imagine a more summery card than the sun. And summer is evocative and symbolic. And while I know some of you are actually not moving towards your summer, you're actually moving towards your winter right now, the commonality that we have energetically is in the transition. The transitions being opportunities, transitions between the seasons, being opportunities for shedding and growing and setting intention. And I guess this reading is going to tell us what that intentionality is all about, because at the heart of our reading we have the Six of Cups, inner child energy. This is This is an indication that we're moving into energies this coming week of re-harmonizing our ability to self-nurture, but not in the insular way that we have grown accustomed to in recent months. This time, it's about externalizing that inner child energy via communication. Communication is going to be at the heart of the matters that we encounter this week. There will be lots of messages, lots of developments, lots of it's a linear move forward that's tangible information coming in to allow us to move forward, and it's our inner child taking the lead as to how we accept, process, and externalize reaction to those developments. We're coming out of our hermit energy, no matter what. This is our past energy. This is in the past. This is what has gotten us to where we're at now in terms of our growth. And the hermit is, of course, about that dark night of the soul energy where we have to go through the process of understanding the deeper recesses of our mind and letting light filter into the darker experiences of our life, seeing them transform in our understanding of ourselves, from being beacons of prevention, in the sense that when something has hurt us or caused trauma or chaos in our lives, our natural instinct traditionally would be to avoid as a result. You know, it creates a strong, harsh boundary to defend and protect ourselves. But the hermit energy allows us to transform that into forward movement, in the sense that it's no longer about blocking us, it's about using that to feed intentionality. And how does that manifest itself? Well, it's like when you know more, you do better. When you understand why somebody else, for example, did something to you, or why you experienced something in a certain way, that doesn't mean that you're not going to try to experience anything similar to that again. It means that you're going to do it better with the power of knowledge and understanding and compassion towards yourself, and ultimately, as a result of compassion towards yourself, being able to have empathy and compassion for others too. Our base energy, the past energy that we are still affected by, that we're coming out of, but that sort of feeds this entire process, is the devil. And the reason I haven't clarified any of these cards is because I have a very strong understanding of what these cards are telling us this week. I feel like using the oracle cards really does give us much more context as to what the reading is about. And the devil being in our foundation and past energy is really talking about codependency, much more so than it is about addictions. Of course, they're all imbalances on some level in us, but the codependent nature is a divisive one at this point in our society. It's when you are on a journey of spiritual awakening, other people's codependencies can well, they don't, it's not just that they can, it's a guarantee that they will be perceived and experienced as destructive. And we have had to look deep into ourselves to understand our own codependency in order to grow beyond it. But part of that journey is also then being able to recognize codependency in other people. And maybe in the past you've had more of a tendency to have a clinical understanding of that and then move into a place of compassion towards that. We have come to a point now where we understand that unfortunately that doesn't work. And other people who have not done the work, the intense, hard, painful work to untether themselves from codependency and self-destruction, self-destructiveness, it's time to close that up. There's no room for it anymore. That's their journey. That's the reason why they are not as far along on their awakening evolutionary process as you are. And while it's always important to remain open in your heart and mind, it's also more important not to allow yourself to be your own progress and your own journey to be hindered by other people's laziness and attachment to darkness that keeps them so stuck in that sort of destructive, unacceptable view of human existence. By letting go of it, the paradox of that is that in our future, what we move into in our immediate future as a result of what I just described is King of Cups energy. And the reason that I stipulate that there's a sort of an ironic twist to that being our future energy is because the King of Cups is compassion and empathy. The King of Cups is the authority on all matters emotional. The knowingness is precisely what allows him to perceive the shortcomings in others and make the decision to release lovingly, to release people lovingly from his conscious awareness and energy pool. So we're moving into that all-knowingness emotionally, that emotional authority within, with a real sense of wholeness, which is a beautiful thing. But we only receive those opportunities to grow in order for us to then in turn take on new experiences that will be challenging to us. So we have to be prepared for that. But the thing is, what we have to remember is when we are in our authority, nothing can destroy us. And the only things that can be destroyed are things that need to be destroyed in order for us to progress. What crowns us is another king. The King of Wands. And I am going to take a clarifier on the King of Wands, but I will tell you why, because the King of Wands is a logical progression from the King of Cups, because it's moving into the sociability that comes as a consequence of being an emotional authority. We move into a self-confidence in the way that we interact with the world outside. And what I feel is coming is this idea that, you know, when we put ourselves out into the world, traditionally we have this notion that we are putting ourselves out there to be judged, to be told where we fit. Here's a place for you. That is no longer the reality for people who are on this journey of spiritual enlightenment. Now it's like you can be rejected by 15 fuckers and you don't care, because you know that if it doesn't work out for you, if somebody doesn't want you, it's because you have something else that you need to do. It doesn't affect your worth whatsoever. The clarifiers on that were, on the left-hand side, the Nine of Swords, so it's letting go of this. Again, it's not falling into that worry cycle. The self-confidence allows us to move beyond falling into this self-doubt, this imaginary monster that we constantly are looking for. You know, as I said at the beginning of this reading, that idea of feeling like we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's exactly that. And it's come up several times in recent readings, and the reason it keeps coming up, and the reason now it's being used as a clarifier for a card that focuses entirely on self-confidence, is because we have a moral responsibility unto ourselves to, as soon as we have any experience resembling this energy, to combat it with this person that is deep inside of us now, that is at our foundation. This trumps that, no matter what. And the Ace of Pentacles was our right clarifier, so our future-oriented clarifier. And it's basically saying that opportunities come when we embody the fullness of our potentiality, and potentiality being essentially what self-confidence is built upon. If you believe that opportunity is there for you, if you know, that is also about perception, because for you, opportunity may be a job that pays you more than the one that you have. For somebody else, it may be getting a job of any kind. For someone else, it may be finally finishing a book that they've had sitting next to their bed. You know, whatever it is, the reason why you do it is because you believe in your own choices. You believe that if that book went next to your bed, it's because you're meant to read it. Or if an opportunity comes your way, it's a vessel for this energy, your version of this energy. That's what you're here to give the world. Right now, where we stand, our present representation of ourselves in our environment is temperance. We have to practice this kind of emotional balance because there is volatility, but because of that self-confidence that we've just discussed, the angel depicted in temperance, which I believe is Gabriel, puts their foot, submerges their foot in the pool of the subconscious and causes ripples, which means stirring up the potentiality for change within, but does so while remaining grounded. And let's face it, they've got the element of air with them all the time because they have wings, they could fly, and their third eye is fully alert, and this comes through the alchemy of tempering. So I guess these cards really go together. In our environment, we have the Three of Cups, which I believe last week was in our psychology zone. And, you know, while, of course, this card depicts abundance and communion and friendship and joyfulness and celebration, because it comes on, you know, it's the environmental counter to temperance. It's basically, we can't look at one without the other. So it's as a result of our own inner work and our own emphasis on the importance of keeping this balance that in turn feeds this synergistic energy in our environment. And I know that sometimes when our patience is tested, because everyone's different, right? And everyone has a variety of things that cause them to react in different ways or to have had different values instilled in them. And subsequently, a lot of us spend our lives looking at other people in judgment and being on the receiving end of a feeling like other people are judging us for our differences. Everyone wants to feel better about themselves. But very often, the way that a lot of people do that is by comparing themselves to other people via their criticism of them. So I think we're being asked to detach from that consciously. We have to catch ourselves when we are in judgment. And we have to tap into that temperance energy in order to combat it. Because we've come to the understanding that it doesn't help us. It doesn't help us. And you know as well as I do that more often than not, we can create this idea of a battle for justice with people in our environments, and we're really having the conversation with ourselves. In fact, most people are so lacking in self-awareness that they wouldn't even pick up on the inner turmoil that you may be feeling as a result of them. So you owe it unto yourself to practice this, because it's always better to be in Three of Cups energy, because this makes for a freer flow of energy in your life to embody the King of Wands energy and therefore receive these opportunities that are always there. It's just when you're not in the right frame of mind, you don't see them. You can't perceive things as opportunities. And you're not going to be looking for real opportunities because you're not going to feel that you're worthy of them. Forgive my slurping. And in our psychology card, we have the Hierophant. So this is asking us to ground ourselves in tradition and conformity. And when I say that, obviously because it's a psychology card, that does not mean they should be going around like, professing that, everything has to be by the book and so on and so forth. What it means is that in order for us to stay grounded in our temperance energy, we have to right now accept pre-established knowledge for exactly that. In order for us to develop a better understanding of truth, and in order for us to be better versions of ourselves going forward out in the world, we also cannot always shun what has come before. And in psychology and in wellness, there's such an abundance of energy there for us and information there for us to tap into that has already been explored by great minds. And those truths are tools for grounding ourselves. So I guess what the message of that is that, as I was saying in the very beginning, there's a war on truth in our lives at present. And it's very important for us to anchor ourselves in our personal truth. But it's also important to remember that that doesn't mean that everything that is tradition to our learning and knowledge needs to be thrown out. Whatever that saying is about the baby in the bathwater, it's basically that. Our outcome, the 5 of Cups reversed. So this whole process in the next week is allowing us to release ourselves from this perpetual sense of being doomed to feel sorrow and not just sorrow, but like the feeling that our better days are behind us and that there is not potentiality in the same capacity any longer. Of course, when we go through turmoil and the world around us is changing the way that it is, and there's so much chaos, it's very easy to lose hope and to feel this way. But this journey that we've just described, that we're on this week, is actually liberating us from that. And how do I know that? Our clarifier coming out of the past energy of influencing that future energy is the 3 of Swords. So that is, that inner turmoil and heartbreak and the accumulation of pain from our past experiences. And in letting go of those, which we're not going to have to consciously make the effort to do that because it's happening. This is the predictive nature of it. In letting go of that, which is essentially emotional poverty consciousness, we come into this alignment of, I don't know who you relate to in this image, but whichever way it is, the idea is that either we embody this ability to then be more generous and giving to others, to carry the scales of justice with us, and therefore go about our business very mindfully in unison with the needs of others. But perhaps if you're in need of receiving, and you relate more to these characters, this generosity comes towards you. And I think I'll take one last card on those before ending this week's video. Oh god. Yeah, well, there we have it. This 10 of Swords came reversed. This is a good sign because we've had it upright a couple of times in recent readings, so we're finally over this part of the end of the cycle that Ten of Swords energy is just nasty, and we'll be glad to see that go. But came out doubled with another 10, 10 of Wands, and this marks the end of another cycle, but this is an inspiration cycle, whereas this is the feeling that all of our ideas and our philosophy have betrayed us in some shape or form. That coming to an end, you know, it then in turn gives way for the wands to come to completion. In other words, an inspiration cycle ends and we come into brand new ideas. And it really mirrors the crowning energy that we had in the personal part of our reading, because what did we have? We had the Nine of Swords, and we had the King of Wands. So it's the same idea of the confidence of the King of Wands, the authority of the King of Wands in his ideas and his impassioned view for innovation, trumping the worry and fear of the Nine of Swords, and allowing in that Ace of Pentacles energy, which is mirrored in our outcome by the Six of Pentacles. Okay, that is our reading for this week. I hope it has been helpful to you, and I look forward to any questions that you have. I am working on a meditation video for those of you who requested that, and it should be coming in the next couple of days, but I also decided that I was going to be making some healing music to go along with it, so I got sidetracked, which is usually a problem for me. I start doing one thing and then decide that it has to have multiple prongs, and well, to be perfectly honest with you, the old me would then just be like, well, I've only completed 2 out of 3 prongs, but that's good enough, and then I'd move on and drop it. So I am determined to fulfill all 3 prongs for you, and I think it will be an interesting experience for all of us collectively, and maybe we can move that and turn that into something more dynamic with time. But in the meantime, I wish you a wonderful week of contemplation and new experiences. Remember to be very psychologically aware of the intensity of this Neptunian and Martian square energy. Basically, if anybody starts provoking you or you feel like you're going to explode, take a walk around the block or go do some deep breathing, because it's not worth it. It's just the energies right now, and we just have to accept that. I'll leave you with these images again, because purity, breathing, and a rebirth is assured. Some pretty good messages for us. I wish you love, peace, and progress. See you soon.